Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about one of the important aspects about climate change, and definitely I'm going to discuss about the Bangladesh perspective. Impact of climate change on people and the environment, climate change and human health. How and why the climate is challenging. Introduction of the climate change, impact of the climate change on the people and the environment, response to climate change and the mitigation and adaptation. Acknowledgements. There are Agriculture University, University of Chittagong, Dhaka University, Independent University, Khulna University, Noakhali University, Shah Jalal University, Sher Bangla Agriculture University, North South University, different university, they playing a major role. And what is the learning objective? Describe the disease like to be exacerbated by the climate change, identify the most vulnerable people and the population, propose possible adaptations to climate change related human health issue. Outline South Asia in disaster prone, the most vulnerable people, climate sensitive health outcome, exacerbating current burden of disease, general adaptation for health sector, disease question. There are key reference, actually a human health project of climate change. A report outlined the research needed to be human health effect of climate change and so on. So there are a few questions like what are the most important human health impact to Bangladesh? Why? What can be done to reduce or mitigate the risks to human health of this impact? Who is responsible for taking this adaptation? Global warming impact on climate and the risk factor. More extreme weather events, heat wave, rapid glacier melting, disrupted rainfall patterns, sea level rise, and air pollution. These are the basic problem. So mortality related to the climate change by 2000. These are the climate change issues, and where actually we can help these things in an effective way. Health impact of the climate change. Climate change we are finding driving force, neutral case, adaptive capacity, mitigation capacity, design, general greenhouse climate change, and everything. Climate change health impacts, direct exposure, indirect exposure, social and economic disasters, environment conditions, social condition, health system. Direct effect, induced disability down and heat street. Indirect effect, water and foodborne disease, malnutrition, vector-borne disease, air pollutions, and psychological stress. Southeast Asia region is vulnerable to climate sensitive health. Indonesia 2005 1996 to 2005, 50% of the people killed globally in natural disaster were from sea. Maldives, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Philippines. There are many people, like 1,000 people die for climate change. Climate change vulnerable English 2011. 1970 to 2030 human exposure to tropical colonies. We are observing that human exposure in Africa, Iceland, North America, and everywhere they have tropical islands. 1970 to 2030, there are another uh, things will happen. Project human impact in sea level rise. 2005, 3.9 million people in sea region exposed to flood caused by storm caused and sea level rise. 2070, estimated 80 million people to the affected at the sea level. Asset exposure project, Floridian project, Ho Chi Minh cities, Bangkok, Manila. Manila has 4% damage. Bangkok has 43 to 69% flooding. Ho Chi Minh city has 60 to 77% problem. Asset exposure projection 2,100 to 4,600. 28 million people to affected in the sea and 3.9 million people in sea region exposure. Sea region is vulnerable to the climate sensitive health. Additional reason for the sea region is a population phase. Population factor affect the risk and impact of the extreme weather even in include population size, age, health issue, wealth, and the type of settlement. The most vulnerable are those who have less capacity to cope up with climate change effect. The most vulnerable, children, women, the elderly, pregnant women, disabled, and the sick people, the poor people, they have problem. The most vulnerable people in Asian region will be the poor. The rural area, women are increasingly become household heads and have the double burden of social reproduction and agricultural work. Pregnant women are especially vulnerable. People living in the sustainable housing and water system will expose a greater risk to life and health with severe weather events. Information settlement, 79% of the populations in Cambodia, 44% of the population in Philippines, and 41% population is Vietnam. Generalize about climate change vulnerability of the human population. Vulnerability will be greater in higher dense populations. Vulnerability will be greater in area of low resource for the healthcare. Vulnerability will be greater in area of low resources for disaster and emerging response. Vulnerability will be greater in area of over allocation population and inadequate water supplies. Vulnerability will be greatest in area of substandard housing and sanitations, and this kind of things will happen. Great vulnerability for the population with same serious uh, existing problem. Major of the vector-borne disease a burden borne by the developing countries. Estimated date due to climate change. 30 years of facilities and the people affected by the disaster. Disaster that climate change might affect it, we are observing. Defecting and mitigations of the change of selecting health impact of the climate change we are observing right now. Beside that, more injuries, disabled, and down from extreme weathers also creating impact. More than 175,000 children and teenagers die from drowning each year. Children under the age of 5 years are more at risk. Most children drowning events happening in and around home. Heat-related mobility, heat rise, heat curves, exhaustions, heat strokes, hydrations, exacerbations of the chronic illness. Extreme heat event and mortality. Age, underlying medical condition, income and poverty status, social isolation, access to healthcare and the cooling facility, neighborhood characteristics, land use, land cover, crime rate, housing types, urban heats, sustainable housing and water system, average of 688 reporting heat related death per year in US. 2003 Andhra Pradesh Indian heat wave with temperatures of up 54 degrees Celsius resulted death to 3,000 people. The number of heat stroke was not recorded. Scatter plot of the daily maximum temperatures and total mortality of the hill identify possible summertime thresholds temperature for extreme heat in Shanghai, China, based on mortality impact. Air pollution meeting increase generally demand by increasing use of fossil fuels will increase in partial matters and air pollution increase aliens due to effect of climate change. Asian born clouds, air particular and pollutions and the prolonging period of dry season. More respiratory in effect. Eroding allegations product increase with increased CO2 concerns also in fact. Rapid glacial melting, less fresh water. More waterborne disease, diarrhea disease account 20.1% of the death in increase less than 5 years. Food security, like social economical trends. Then security of the food is equal to malnutrition, crop yield crop decreased by the 30% of the Central and South Asia, the mid 21st century. Malnutrition, population mortality among the children under the 5 years of the age of worlds. Suspensible populations vector pathogen. Spread of vector-borne combined with the alphabet of the rainfall pattern, hotel conditions may increase the spread of disease such as malaria, dengue, chikungunya, and new area. Climate change and mosquitoes-borne disease also fact. Trend to increase the range of incidence actual occupation is strong influenced by the local conditions. Cli- uh, mm, uh, and 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 there are different kind of biography for transformation potentials, biting incubation period, biting frequency, survival periods we are observing, example of adaptation for the malaria, mood of intention, stage intentions, level of intentions. uh, Dengue fever, estimated population at the risk of dengue fever in the Southeast Asia was 1.3 billion people, 52% of the global estimated, 2.5% at risk. Further develop emergency medical survivor, further develop disaster response capacity, improve climate sensitive disaster surveillance and control, improve safe water supply and sanitation, improve health sanitation, expand and ensure safe water supplies and improve sanitations, educate sanitizer on the risk or responses on the climate change health related issues, address poverty, education and gender inequality. Take home message: the sea region has a large population that is currently vulnerable to a number of climate sensitive health issues. These sectors are already have a sign adverse health impact in the regions. Climate change is likely to increase the risk like to these sectors. Without adaptations and mitigations, climate change could result in dramatically increased health burdens in regions. Much can be done not to adapt and prepare will improve the health of millions. What are the most vulnerable area in your countries? Who are the most vulnerable in your communities? What illness and diseases that always occurs? What are we adaptations? Who adapt and who is vulnerable? What do we adapt and what do we want to achieve? Video and discussions. This is the bird, mosquitoes and virus. There are different kind of aspects we are observing that this kind of things actually, especially climate change, create lot of healthcare health related challenge and so on. So if you have any kind of question regarding climate change and the health issue, you can directly communicate with me. Thank you.